Speaking of Donald Trump, we have some footage from outside the courtroom and the so-called hush money Alvin Bragg trial in New York, where Republicans have devised a strategy of basically flooding the zone, going up to New York. I'm sure it's great for fundraising on their end and speaking out on behalf of their beleaguered leader. Let's roll this clip of Mike Johnson and Vivek Ramaswamy in New York yesterday. They were also accompanied by Doug Burgum, all kinds of different people. I think Byron Donald was there. Let's take a look.
Anybody here in the press? Anybody at home? Anybody in MSNBC or the media afterwards to clearly state what exactly is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Oh, wait. We have not heard a good answer to that question. It has been vague until today. You heard Michael Cohen's testimony, after which I would say it is less clear than ever what that crime actually was. They'll say falsifying business records. Well, let's look at who did we learn falsified business records today? Yet, what, hour, 2 hours, felt like it could have been 7 hours, of Michael Cohen talking about how he falsified business records. Okay, so you have a guy who has been a perjurer in the past that is now saying he falsified business records. What is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Now, it appears to be what they might allege is some sort of bookkeeping error or whatever. The real bookkeeping that we need accounting of is Judge Merchan's own family member collecting millions of dollars as a Democratic operative, using the existence of this trial as a fundraising ploy for Democrats. This is unconscionable. Imagine if the same shoe fit the other foot.
I'm an attorney. I'm a former litigator myself. I am disgusted by what is happening here, what is being done here to our entire system of justice overall. The people are losing faith right now in this country, in our institutions. They're losing faith in our system of justice. And the reason for that is because they see it being abused as it is being done here in New York. The facts here are very important. Facts are always important in a trial, or at least they're supposed to be. The president's actions in this matter were previously reviewed and no charges were filed. Why is that? Because there's no crime here. Now, 8 years later, suddenly they've resurrected this thing. They brought it back. And why is that? Well, just apply common sense. Everyone can see. It's painfully obvious that we're now 6 months out from an election day. And that's the reason. That is the reason why they brought these charges here and across the country.
So there's just a lot of fatigue and exhaustion with Alvin Bragg's decision here, even on the left, Ryan. I think it's interesting, Tommy Tuberville, J.D. Vance, I think Rick Scott went last week. Yeah, he did go up last week to sort of go up to New York, have these moments like we just saw with Mike Johnson and Vivek Ramaswamy, sort of relish the spotlight, look like they're, really, they have Donald Trump's back. From my perspective, we just did a whole segment on the economy. I find it very interesting that people are sort of patting Mike Johnson, who continues to be a real person, we can confirm, on the back for this, when it's like the dude just flip-flopped on FISA and he's doing this to make you feel like he's MAGA. This is, again, the case is ridiculous, but Mike Johnson is going up here, other Republicans are going up here. They might not actually vote the way that you want them to, but they're going to do that and act like they're super MAGA because this is a really easy opportunity. I mean, even liberals in the New York Times are inveighing against Alvin Bragg at this point, saying, at first there was an op-ed a couple weeks ago that was like, this is a grave mistake because he had to upgrade because of the statute of limitations. He had to basically devise the strategy to say this wasn't a misdemeanor, it was actually a felony because it was about breaking federal campaign finance laws, which is really unclear because if Donald Trump had classified the hush money payments to a porn star as something else, it also doesn't really make sense from a legal standpoint that that's their argument. And even to say that it was done to break federal campaign finance laws, he has to prove that it was only about the campaign. There were no personal reasons for hushing up somebody who is alleging that they had an affair with you while your wife was, pregnant. So it's just a circus.
Right, and because it's this interesting situation where nobody seems to doubt that he did what he did, right. From beginning to end. Question is, well, is this a crime? And later in this program, we're going to talk about how AIPAC is spending millions of dollars secretly in a congressional race in order to influence it, using shell packs in order to get around kind of disclosure requirements. nobody's remotely suggesting they're going to be prosecuted for any of that. Nobody gets prosecuted for anything when it comes to campaign finance law. The idea that this would be the one thing that would get prosecuted, I think, is the reason that a lot of his supporters are like, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, it's like hush money's legal.
Right.
And
right, it is.
Okay, so, and then you're saying, okay, well, do we expect Donald Trump is like going over the paperwork that's filed on his behalf, either to the FEC or to the, like, guy, and what good would that even do? Can you imagine Donald Trump, like, going over paperwork with a fine-tooth comb? Like, basically criminalizing his existence, which I'm for.
I was going to say. Well,
but it's hard to stand up that on principle.
So Michael Cohen was testifying yesterday, obviously, and that was a big media circus as well. The New York Times writes, when monthly checks to Cohen started arriving, most bearing Mr. Trump's signature, they disguised the nature of the payments. Mr. Cohen testified. The stubs described the checks as part of a legal, quote, retainer agreement, but they were in fact reimbursements for hush money that Mr. Cohen had paid to silence a porn star's story of sex with Mr. Trump. Mr. Cohen said that Mr. Trump was present when a plan to fictionalize the records was cooked up weeks earlier in New York. The testimony marked a pivotal moment for prosecutors. They charged Mr. Trump with falsifying the checks and other records, and Mr. Cohen's recounting drove those accusations home. So obviously, Michael Cohen was cross-examined yesterday as well, and it was admitting all kinds of stuff left and right. This follows the week of Stormy Daniels testifying. Then we had David Pecker, who owned the media group behind the National Enquirer, testifying. And the cross-examination of Michael Cohen was, basically what you would expect. So at one point, Cohen was asked whether he knew who he was, okay, this is confusing the way that I'm reading this, but basically here's the CNN. Donald Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, began his confrontation with Michael Cohen on Tuesday by throwing the former fixer's language back in his face. Blanche confirmed the two had never spoken, but asked Cohen whether he knew who he was already, since Cohen, quote, went on TikTok and called me a crying little shit just before the trial began. Cohen responded, sounds like something I would say. Just Trumpian all around, like the peak Trump for Trump's trial. So he got grilled on the stand yesterday, but then the prosecution also felt like they got real concessions or got real admissions out of him that seal their case, which is these checks coming from, and again, like if you don't think Donald Trump did this, we all kind of know what happened here. In all likelihood, we all kind of know what happened here.
Yeah. And then there's also the witness intimidation / shenanigans that Cohen testified to yesterday.
Right.
He called Trump, and after the FBI raided him, and Trump told him, according to Cohen, don't worry, I'm the president of the United States. There's nothing here. Everything's going to be okay. Stay tough. You're going to be okay. The message was then later relayed to him, sleep well tonight. You have friends in high places. A very clear suggestion from Trump that, look, I'm the president. I'm not going to let you go down for this.
Yeah. If it's true, which again, I think most people probably believe, but Michael Cohen has also lied. And so just from the standpoint of the case strategy, this is a case based on David Pecker, Stormy Daniels, and Michael Cohen.
Yeah, and also the thing that comes through here is everybody in the Trump world knows that Trump treats a lot of people around him terribly. He probably treated nobody more terribly than Michael Cohen. And now we know that Michael Cohen was harboring Mount Vesuvius level resentment against him. Yeah. That once Trump did not have his back, as he promised on this, has just erupted. Right. And so on the one hand, you say, well, he's flipping, he's telling the truth on his old wretched boss. Right. And you're saying he would like nothing more than just to see this guy convicted and go down. Right. And it kills him that Trump remains like a part of our national politics and leading the presidential race. Right. Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And Trump is facing prison over this. And I know we've talked about this before. I'm skeptical. I mean, it's a felony. You can, 34 felonies or whatever. Right. I mean, it is a felony. And so the former president of the United States, the leading presidential candidate facing felony charges for this, there's a host of other cases, obviously, as well. As much as both of us are in favor of locking up white-collar criminals, personally, if you're just going to
go after one party in just sort of ticky-tacky ways. I just think it's obviously, from my perspective, a very dangerous road to go down. And every day we hear testimony from this trial about whether or not Donald Trump was like wink, wink, nod, mafia-style falsifying checks. It's like, is this really what we're talking about with Donald Trump? Like, why are we doing this? Talk about something else. There's plenty to talk about when it comes to Donald Trump. And instead he's in New York. Well, we have to listen to Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels recount their various interactions with him over the years. Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.